is none other than our beautiful, eloquent Ikeoluwa Ayansiji. I hope I pronounced your name well. Ikeoluwa is an IT GRC consultant. She has years of experience implementing and architecting management systems and risk frameworks for S&BP, an enterprise organization. Please, with a round of applause in the chat room, can we make welcome Ikeoluwa as she takes up the next session, ISO 31000 Risk Management. Ike, you are welcome. Please, you can take it up from here.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mercy. Good morning, everyone. I hope that we can hear me. I hope you can hear me. Can you indicate? Oh, okay. Yes. All right. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Just as Mercy has introduced, my name is Ikeoluwa Ayansiji, and I will be walking you through the ISO 31000, which is risk management for ISO. I believe that we are already familiar with what ISO is, but this is a subsection of the different ISOs that we have. We have various ISOs, that is international standards organizations. They are standards that guides organizations within what they do. And of course we have various ISOs. We have ISO 27001, we have ISO 9000, we have ISO 22301. There are a lot. So today we are focusing on 31000. So just give me a minute to share my screen and then we'll start the session. All right. Please let me know when you can see my screen so that I know that we're on the same page. Okay. Please let me know you can see my screen. I'm sharing now.
All right, it's still loading. Yes, we can see your screen. Please put it on a presentation mode.
Oh, definitely. Hello, can you see my screen now? Hello?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so like I said, you're looking at ISO 31000, which is risk management. And you know that risk management is very broad. So we're just going to be looking at the foundation aspect today, the basis of risk management, what it entails, the meaning of risk, the components and the principles, the frameworks of risk management, what are some of the criteria of managing risk. All of that is what we'll be looking at today, which is the foundation aspect of risk management. I know that we are aware that every day, we face risk as an individual. Let's even leave organization out of it. As an individual, your daily living, we have risk every day, maybe risk of, crossing the road and getting hit by a car, risk of getting hacked. If you use your phone, if you use your laptop, you can get hacked. That could also be a risk. If you're starting a business, there could be risk of loss. Anything can happen, and then maybe you get duped by your supplier. All of these are risk, and of course we want to ensure that we have ways of managing it. What are the things that are involved when it comes to risk? What do you need to do? What are the foundations of what managing risk is essentially about? Okay, so I hope that we are all still together here, and I hope that at the end of this session we'll understand what risk is properly, and of course some of the principles and frameworks of risk management. So very quickly before we continue, I would like to introduce us to what risk is. Let me ask this question in a layman language. Who wants to help us with what you understand as risk? In a layman language, your general knowledge, what do you think risk is? What do you think risk is in a layman language? Let me not use layman. In your general knowledge, what do you understand as risk? Anybody?
Yeah,
you can go to the chat. Oh, okay, please go ahead.
To me, I feel like risk is a certain amount of loss you can bear for a particular project or a program that you have planned out.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Who else wants to help us before I come in? Any other person? You can go to the chat room and just,
There are
type
messages
what
on the
you.
chat room.
Okay. Okay, tennis of something going wrong. Okay, possibility of uncertainties. Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone. I mean, we've spoken well. The first speaker that said risk is possibility of you said losing something, right? What you can afford to lose. Was that what you said? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Well, I wouldn't say you're wrong, and I wouldn't say you're completely right. Saying that is like your risk tolerance. That is the what's the word now? The level of risk that you are willing to accept. Let me put it in a way. Let's say that something happens, and then you already set a goal that, oh, as an individual, I can only afford to lose 100,000 naira, right? That is your risk appetite, first of all. Now, your tolerance is now saying, okay, peradventure, I lose more than 100,000 naira. I cannot go beyond losing 150,000 naira. If I go beyond that, then there's a disaster. That's your risk tolerance. You have your appetite, then you have your threshold that I cannot go beyond this. So risk is not mainly what you said now, that, oh, you losing something. Well, it's part of it, but it is not entirely that. Okay. So risk in itself is, let me use a layman language, is the effect of uncertainty on objectives, right? It's the possibility that something might happen that would affect your goal, not necessarily you losing something. It could be positive or negative, right? It is the effect of something, either positive or negative, affecting your objectives, affecting your goals. So anything that causes an hindrance, anything that causes a halt, that would affect, or that would maybe put a stop to your objective, that would hinder it either negatively or positively, is what we call risk. All right, so it is not necessarily you losing something, right? And then effects, I mean, as it is in the definition, is a deviation from your outcomes, what you expect to happen. When it deviates, when there is a what's the word now, when it goes south, let me use that word, when it goes the other way, you planned for something, or you've planned for your goals, at the beginning of the year, you outlined your goals, and then something that happens that makes it go south. That is what this effect is about. And like I said, it is not necessarily negative. There could be positive effect, which is your opportunities. Oh, because this thing is going to happen, we have an opportunity of maybe implementing something, or because we've analyzed or outlined that there could be a fire risk, we have an opportunity of getting fire alarms. We have an opportunity of getting or training fire marshals. We have an opportunity because I feel that I want to start a business and I might lose money, at the beginning of the business. I've analyzed the risk and I noticed that there's a possibility that I lose money. Okay, so what can I do? What can I put in place that would, what's the opportunity here? The opportunity could be that, oh, I get to save ahead of time, so that even if I lose some money, I would not go down entirely, right? That could be an opportunity for you from that risk. All right, so it is not necessarily always negative. Okay, and then uncertainty, of course, as the word says, lack of information. You don't know what will happen. You're not sure. That's just the simple language. You're not sure. So risk, you're not sure of it. Anything can happen. You don't know what will happen in future, right? You don't know how exactly it's going to affect you, but you can predict. You can analyze it ahead of time. Okay, objectives, as the word implies, refers to your goals, your specific goals, your targets as an individual, as an organization. What have you planned to do? Oh, at the beginning of the year, I've decided that I want to have some certifications. I want to ensure that I have some certain amount of money in my account at the end of the year. As an organization, we want to ensure that we improve. We want to ensure that we can meet our business goals by supplying our customers. We want to ensure that we also have revenue. Of course, everybody wants to make income, want to make money, right? So you set your goals at the beginning of the year. Okay, so anything can happen that would alter that goal. Anything can happen that would, cause your goal to go south. That is what risk is about. And if you're trying to express risk, you're trying to get your risk score, during risk analysis, you need to multiply your likelihood by the impact. Now, what is likelihood? Likelihood is the probability of something, of a risk occurring. Oh, there could be a fire risk, right? Oh, as an individual, there could be a risk of maybe home accident, maybe hacking. Your phone might be hacked, your phone might be stolen. Let's even use that. If you walk on a bad road, or if you walk in an area that is not very safe, your phone might be stolen. What is the likelihood? The likelihood, of course, it could be very high based on maybe your environment. You can say, oh, me losing my phone, well, because of where I am at the moment, yes, the likelihood is high, maybe on a scale of 1 to 5. And then the impact is the effects of that thing occurring. So if your phone is stolen, how would it affect you? And what would be the severity? Oh, as a student, my phone is stolen, it's going to affect me. In fact, I don't even know, I can't put a measure to that, because everything is on there, your bank apps, your contacts, everything basically. I mean, this is a jet age, and we all have everything that we need on our phones. So imagine that your phone is stolen today. It means that the impact is going to be very, very high on you as an individual. That is just an example. So you can see the likelihood is the probability of that risk occurring, right? Or that event occurring, and then the impact is the effect it would have on you if that risk or if that event actually occurs. I believe that we are still together. All right. Now, risk management is a structured process of you identifying, analyzing, evaluating, and addressing these uncertainties. Remember, we already said earlier that uncertainties, what you don't know, you're not sure of, right? And then these things can impact you, that is, can have effects on you achieving your goals. So risk management helps you to identify these risks, right? Analyze them, evaluate them, and of course address them. So you're able to identify that, oh, there could be a risk of me losing my phone, there could be a risk of fire to an organization, there could be a risk of losing funds as an organization in the business. These are you identifying the risk that could happen. Then you analyze it. What will be the likelihood of this risk occurring? What's the scale? What will be the impact? That is the effect. How would it affect us? Would it affect our finance? Would it affect our income? Would it affect our reputation? You analyze it, and then you evaluate it by multiplying the likelihood with the impact, so that you get the risk score. How high is this risk? Then, of course, what do we need to do? How can we contain this risk? What do we need to put in place to ensure that this risk does not occur? And even if it eventually occurs, the effect is going to be very low, because you have put in some measures. Okay, now this is also a core component of you planning strategically, and of course operational management, ensuring that as an organization we can respond to both opportunities and threats. Remember, I said earlier that this could be either positive or negative. Okay, so you are able to, risk management helps you to plan ahead, helps you to strategize, put measures in place so that risk is not going to affect you, so that you are resilient as an organization and as an individual. All right. Okay, we have some characteristics of risk management. We have 3 key characteristics, which is the proactive approach, we have the systematic process, and we have decision-making tool. So proactive means that you focus on identifying the risk before they occur. You try to identify these risks and find a way to address them before they become a problem. Oh, I've noticed that my phone is malfunctioning and it could pack up at any minute. This is a risk. What do I need to do so that there won't be problems? Is that you back up all your data, or you find a way to get another phone, or you repair it before it even, happens, right? So This is an example of putting in proactive measures, right? Identifying the risk before they actually occur. Instead of you waiting for anything to go wrong, you prepare in advance. You prepare ahead for this thing because you've done some foresight and you notice that, oh, this is a risk. This can happen. This could be a threat. What do we need to put in place before it occurs? Then we have the systematic process. This entails you using methods, structured methods to evaluate and manage risk. You have some step-by-step processes that you put in place to evaluate your risk. How do we handle the risk? So you can define a risk method that you would use. Okay, first of all, we identify the risk, then we go on to assess it, then we go on to treat the risk, that is putting measures in place to prevent that risk from occurring. And then you can also monitor that, okay, yes, we have put measures in place, but we also need to monitor that this thing does not affect our objective. So you have a systematic process like that. That means like a documented process. Let me put it that way. How do we monitor risk? How do we manage risk? How do we evaluate it? What do we need to do? Oh, we identify at the beginning of the year or every 3 months or maybe every 6 months to identify our risk. We evaluate this risk. We monitor and review continuously. So it is you having a defined approach to evaluating and managing your risk. And then we have the decision-making tool, which helps us to make right decisions, because there is a tool that we can use. It helps us to what's the word now, make decisions that would positively affect our organization. We ensure that we have the right things in place, we have the right information, right, for analyzing and managing our risk. For example, before you make any decision, you look into, maybe you're trying to make a business decision and you want to maybe launch a new product, or you want to embark on a new journey or a new business. You want to take a look at the business risk. You want to go down and check history to know if there has been any what's the word now, any risk regarding that business, right? You want to ensure that, oh, we are informed. Okay, you try to be informed so that you don't make mistakes. All right. Now, why does risk management matter? It helps us to align our resources. We are not supposed to be wasting resources. If you manage your risk effectively, you identify ahead of time, you maybe use proactive approach, you would see that you are able to reduce costs. You are able to manage your resources effectively. Instead of you waiting till that risk occurs or waiting till something bad happens, you've seen ahead of time and you're able to put measures in place so that even if it actually happens, there would be a reduced impact, and of course, you'll not be spending much money. So you're able to manage your resources, your personnel, everybody. You're able to coordinate them properly to address uncertainties. And of course, this also helps your organizational resilience. So you're able to withstand threats. You're able to withstand any disruption that happens because you already manage your risk, you've identified them, and you've put measures in place to mitigate these risks. All right. Now, this standard, which is the ISO 1000, can be used for the following things. Of course, helping you to make the right decisions. Also, it can also be used for operational management. You can also use it for regulatory compliance. There are some cases whereby you have to be compliant to managing risk. However, you cannot be certified to ISO 31000. This is just best practice, just the guideline to help you manage risk effectively, right? And then it also helps to protect our assets and, of course, protect our reputation. If you're able to manage your risk effectively, people know that, oh, this organization is very resilient. No matter what happens, they are good to go. They're not going to go bankrupt. No matter what happens, they're still going to provide services to us. Then your reputation is going to be very, very high, right? Everybody holds you in high regards. Okay. Now, moving on quickly, I don't want to waste our time. Right. The role of risk management in organizations, we operate in an environment filled with uncertainties. You don't know what will happen tomorrow. You don't know what will happen even today. Nobody knows. Anything can happen, right? From your market, there could be market fluctuations in your organization. There could be changes in your technology. There could be regulatory changes too. The regulatory bodies might wake up today and give another directive, and you need to obey, you need to comply. So anything can definitely happen. So risk management helps us to navigate these uncertainties and ensures that we as an organization, we are resilient. Okay, so there could be any change. There are several uncertainties and nobody wants to be caught off guard. So you need to have a management process in place, how you intend to manage this process, this risk, how you intend to evaluate them, identify them, analyze them, and ensure continual improvement. All right. Okay. So moving on, these are some key important areas of risk management. All right. We have the strategic alignment. This helps us to ensure that you don't just have your risk anywhere. You don't just do it anyhow. It is aligned with what you are doing in your organization. It is aligned with your objectives. You're not just doing risk anyhow. Before you start managing your risk, you want to ensure that it aligns with your goals. The risk should not be scattered. It shouldn't just be any risk. It should be aligned with your goals, aligned with your objectives. So that, of course, what's the essence of you just conducting risk and does not align with your objectives? It does not make sense, right? Then it also helps us to make decisions. When you evaluate your risk and your opportunities, you're able to make decisions as an organization and as an individual. Now, I'm looking into individual because most of us here, maybe we don't have business, or maybe we are individuals, or maybe we are students, right? So how do you ensure that you can make decisions that would improve, your business, that will improve or that would help your objectives and your goals? It supports you making the right decisions because you've managed your risk, you've identified them, you've evaluated them, you're able to make decisions that would positively affect you as an individual and, of course, your organization. And like I said earlier, regulatory compliance also is part of it because in some cases you need to comply to some regulatory requirements. Okay, so you want to ensure that you have an effective risk management practice in place as an organization. It also helps operational efficiency. So managing risk proactively, using the proactive approach, will reduce downtime. It will prevent losses. It will prevent, you wasting resources because you've seen ahead, you've analyzed ahead of time, you have put measures in place. You're not going to lose too much. It will also reduce downtime, meaning that it will reduce the time in which you would have to wait before you continue your business. Because I already know that, I've identified fire as a risk and I've put some measures in place. Maybe I have some fire extinguishers, I have fire marshals, I have access to maybe the firefighters, right? Or fire emergency services. I have access to them. So it means that if there's a fire outbreak now, there is a detector there's a smoke detector that detects it, and then the fire alarm sounds, and then we need to make a call. Everything is already on ground. So even if it happens, the downtime will not be too much because we've made preparations for it, right? And then the loss will not be so much because you already have some things to mitigate that risk. It also protects our reputation, like I said. If I know that this person is reliable, this person, whatever happens, they can, quickly recover, I would definitely want to work with you. I would definitely want to do business with you because I know that, everything is fine with you. So it also protects your reputation as an organization. All right. Now, benefit of risk management, it's still one of what I talked about earlier, ensuring organizational resilience. You're able to recover quickly in the event of any disruption or any risk. If there is any, what's the word now? If anything happens right now, maybe as a business owner, you lose some money, or there's a fire outbreak, or you got duped, or your supplier did not supply goods on time, you have a backup, right? You can quickly recover from any setback that happens to you as an individual or as an organization. Okay, it also helps your financial performance. If you address your risk ahead of time, it will help you to save costs. I've planned. Imagine someone who already has, what's the word now? Let's use students now. You have a laptop, and let's not even use students. You work for an organization as a freelancer and you have lots of data on your laptop. and you know that there's a possibility that your laptop crashes one day, or maybe you were hacked or something happens and then you lose all data, and you've analyzed that losing data is going to really affect you. That is proactive approach. You've analyzed it, that there could be a risk of loss of data. Now you need to put in measures that, okay, what can I do to ensure that if this thing happens, if my laptop crashes now, I won't lose data, or even if I do, I can still bear the impact. What then do? You back up your data so that no matter what happens, even if your system crashes now, the only cost that you'll be covering is the cost of buying a new laptop, not the data, because it's possible that you have data of your customers, of your clients, and losing those data might, in fact, it's not might, it's going to be very, very, the impact will be very, very high. Okay, so you've put emails in place, thereby reducing the cost of losses. You avoid losses, and of course you reduce cost in the event of any uncertainty or any risk occurring. All right, and then your stakeholders also, there's confidence. Your investors have confidence in you that, oh, these people, they have a management process in place, and of course they know what to do to ensure that they will not be losing too much money. Right, your customers also have faith in you because they know that no matter what happens, these people would still bounce back almost immediately. Take for example, we have some banks. Let's use banks now. That's like a general thing that everybody knows about. We have banks that you want to work with, banks that you don't have any issue. You know that, oh, even if anything happens now and maybe they have a downtime, you would say, oh, it's just for 10 minutes. And not everything's going to work within 10 minutes. However, there are some that you don't even want to work with them because you know that if anything happens and maybe you try to send money now and does not go through, you will not get the response until maybe 3 days, or maybe you will never be able to work or use your bank app for the next 2 days, right? But if you implement a management approach, it helps you to it helps the organization to become confident. People are confident in you because they know that, oh, these people, no matter what happens, they have something in place. They will definitely be back up within few minutes. All of these things are what risk management helps us to do. These are just examples of areas or case studies of risk management. You can see cybersecurity risk for maybe a bank or a financial institution. You identify some cybersecurity threats, as a critical risk, and then you have some regular risk assessment. You implement some firewalls. You train your employees. Let them know, oh, there are some mails that you should not click. There's some link you should not click on. You shouldn't respond to some mails. You sensitize them so that they know what to do. They shouldn't fall for phishing emails. They shouldn't fall for hackers. They shouldn't fall for any of these things. This is you putting measures in place to prevent these cybersecurity threats, because you know that if it happens, it's going to really affect your organization. Doing this will definitely help to prevent data breach, and of course, your customers have more trust in you. There could also be, for a case of the supply chain disruption, as an organization that, oh, there could be a vendor failure. Maybe your vendor fails to deliver at the time you're supposed to deliver. Now, what you need to do ahead of time is to have an alternative vendor, have an alternative supplier, so that no matter what happens, you can switch to the next supplier and also provide services to your customers without any issue. Instead of you waiting for your supplier to deliver, you already have a backup plan. This would definitely help you to be resilient and also increase customer confidence. Same thing goes for individuals. You know that, oh, anything can happen. For example, you work from home, and you're supposed to be online 24/7, or maybe for the 8 hours of work, you only have one internet connectivity, or you only have one internet service provider. That's not very smart. What if you're on a call with your client and then there is a disruption to your internet connectivity? So what do you need to do? You get an alternative internet, what do you call it now, service provider, so that if anything happens, you switch to the next one, right? That is also an example of you being proactive. You don't want to wait till that thing happens. You don't want to wait till there's a downtime and then you start looking for, you're on a call, and then all of a sudden there's a downtime to your network, and then you start looking for how to continue with your meeting. Instead, you have a support, you have an alternative. So all of these things are what risk management helps you to do. You're able to manage your risk effectively. You're able to identify them ahead of time, and also have some measures in place to prevent and mitigate them even if they eventually happen. Okay. Now, ISO 1000, like I said, is an international standard that provides guidelines for you managing risk effectively. I said earlier that we have several ISOs, right? It's not just one ISO that we have. I'm trying to run this through so that we don't waste too much of our time. Features of ISO 31000, of course, the purpose for you to have how you manage your risk across the organization, how you make decisions, it supports your decision making, helps you to be resilient as an organization. And then for the scope, you can apply it to any organization. You can apply it to, any industry, regardless of your size or the type, be it the financial institution, be it the medical industry, be it the manufacturing industry. You can apply risk management to any industry. Okay, now the standard is based on three structures. We have the principles, which is 8. We have the framework, which is 6. We also have the processes, which is also 6, right? The principles is what guides the design and implementation of risk management. Then the framework outlines how we are able to integrate these risk management into the organization strategy and processes. You don't have to do it as a standalone. You're supposed to bring it together so that there is a simulation between your risk approach and the organization. And of course, the processes, what's the step-by-step method for implementing or for carrying out risk management. How do you identify, how do you assess, how do you manage, how do you control, how do you review? This is what the standard is structured around. All right, we also have some benefits. We already knew some of them earlier. It helps to protect your resources. It helps you to make informed decisions. It also encourages continuous improvement. I hope that we are still together. I'm just trying to run over these areas so that we would not miss out the important areas in the slide. I hope that we are still here. Kindly raise your hands or kindly indicate so I know that we are still together.
Yeah, we're still together.
All right, that's fine. Now, we also have, I told us earlier that we have several ISOs, okay? Now, we have some that we can use alongside with IS 31000, okay? We have 9001. Of course, we need to manage risk, okay, to the quality of our products. This 9001 talks about quality management. We have 45,001, which is operational health and safety. We can also use 31,000 here. We have 27,001, which is information security, and we can also use 31,000 within 27,001. We also have 22301, which is business continuity. You can also use 31,000. You can use it to address some business continuity risk as well. Okay. Now we have some practical applications of the 31,000. People use it to develop, of course, policies and strategy. Like I said, you cannot get certified to this standard. It is just a guideline. It is more like best practices. It helps you, or it's like a roadmap for managing your risk, but you cannot be certified to it. So it helps you to decide how you want to manage your risk. It helps you to do that effectively. So you're able to draft policies, you're able to draft strategies, you're able to conduct risk assessments, you're able to have some form of mitigation controls in place for your risk. Okay. So these are just definitions. We've looked at what risk is about. Risk management is about you having activities to control risk. How do you control risk within your organization? Okay. Then we have the framework, which definitely consists of the components that helps you analyze and manage risk generally, how you design it, how you implement it into your organization, how you monitor, how you review. There has to be a continuous review. This is not a one-off. When you implement risk, in your organization. It is not a one-off. You need to constantly go back and review. Oh, we analyzed some risk 2 months ago or 3 months ago. In the next 3 months again, we'll go back to review this risk. We go back to see if our controls that we put in place are still adequate or we need to make changes. Okay. Then we have the process of managing risk. That is risk management process. We talked about you having, some policies in place, having some practices in place that helps you to identify your risk. Okay, you're able to decide if you're going to use a 4x4 matrix or a 3x3 matrix. You're able to analyze how exactly you want to identify and analyze or evaluate your risk. And then we have the risk tolerance that I was talking about earlier. This is the threshold of risk in an organization. So we are saying that, if anything happens, right, we can, what's the word now? We can bear, let me use a practical example. So for example, you say that, excuse me, for our organization, we have, maybe there is a risk of, let's say fire, or let's say loss of money, right? Loss of revenue. And then we say, okay, our risk appetite is 5%. We don't want to lose more than 5% of our revenue, right? That is our risk appetite. We have nailed it at that point that, what we can bear, or what we are willing to, the loss are willing to bear in order to achieve our objective is 5%. Now, the tolerance is what, what's the word now? A little beyond your appetite. So we are saying that, okay, yes, our appetite is 5%. However, we can still go a notch higher to 7% or to 10%. But anything beyond 10%, we can no longer take it. This is our final ground. This is our final stance. We can no longer accept these risk. Okay, that is what the tolerance is about. Then the likelihood, I already explained this earlier, is the probability of a risk occurring. We have the impact, which is the consequence, the effect, what will happen if this risk occurs. How will it affect you as an organization or as an individual? What will be the severity? Is it going to be very high, or is it going to be low or medium? Okay. Then we have risk event, of course, the occurrence or set of circumstances that can lead to a risk materializing. There could be examples, could be maybe risk of data breach, of course, that can lead to maybe financial loss or maybe reputational damage, or maybe you would also have what's the word, a regulatory risk. Okay. Then we have appetite. Like I said earlier, the appetite is the amount of risk that you are willing to pursue as an organization to achieve your objective. Yes, anything can happen, but we can still maintain this risk. We are okay with this risk just to ensure that we can achieve our objectives. We are okay with losing 100,000 naira if it will help us achieve our objective. We are okay with it. We don't mind losing 10,000 naira. But if it passes 100,000 and moves up to 200,000, that is the last point. That is our tolerance. We cannot go beyond that level. Okay. So that is what appetite and tolerance is. Like I said, they are similar, but they are completely different. Then we have uncertainty. This is the state of having incomplete or imperfect knowledge. You don't know, you're unsure. That's the word. You're unsure. Anything can happen. Okay. And then your control measures, of course, you have some policies in place, you have some controls, you have your mitigation strategies in place to ensure that, we can reduce the likelihood or impact of risk. And then we have inherent risk and residual risk. Now, inherent risk are the risks that exist before any control. So this is the first risk you identify. They are very raw. You've not analyzed that, or you've not put any measures to control. That is your inherent risk. Okay, they're trying to what do you call it now? Before you put any measures or any safeguards in place, that is what inherent risk is about. The residual risk is the level of risk that is left after you put in some controls. So let's say, for example, you identify that there could be a risk of you losing your laptop, like I said earlier, losing your data, right? Then you now put measures in place to back up and all of that. Now, there still could be some residual risk even after putting measures to back up. Residual risk could be risk of you buy another laptop, because of course you can't do anything about that. You definitely have to buy a laptop if that laptop crashes, right? Or maybe you have to repair it. I think you're still going to go through a little cost. That is your residual risk. Okay. And then we have the risk owner, the person that of course undoes or is accountable for a particular risk, person that is involved in managing it. So in organizations, for example, if we identify a financial risk, the finance officer can be the risk owner. Is one that ensures that this risk, we find a way to mitigate it, we find a way to oversee, or we find a way to ensure that this risk does not occur. And even if it occurs, we're able to manage it effectively. Then we have risk criteria. We talked about, how we want to evaluate our risk, some terminologies, some what do you call it now? Some benchmarks are used to evaluate your risk. Okay, these are some of the concepts and definitions within risk management. I also have stakeholders, of course. We do know what that means. Both the internal and the external stakeholders, those that are involved, that are a part of the risk management activities. So the employees, that if you want to do any risk assessment within an organization, you need to meet with the risk owners. You cannot do it alone. You have to have some sessions, have some discussions with the risk owners to understand what the risk is about and how we can manage these risks. Okay, so let's quickly move on to the principles of risk management so that we don't waste too much of our time. All right, these principles they form the foundation for creating a risk-aware culture, and of course, they ensure that our risk management process is integrated into our activities. So it is not a standalone. You cannot say, oh, we've done or we've implemented risk management in our organization, and that is it. It has to be integrated. You have to ensure that there's a simulation between what you've implemented and your processes. There has to be an alignment. This is very very important. So we have it. We have integration. We have this approach that is structured. We have customization. We have stakeholder inclusion. We have dynamic processes. We have best information. We have the human factors, and we have continuous improvement, which is very very important. Okay, so we'll start from principle 1, which is integration. These, like I said, you need to ensure that you integrate these into your process. You cannot do it as a standalone. There has to be a way that you ensure that your risk management is part of all your business processes. You cannot do it separately. There has to be an integration. You embed it in all areas, in all aspects of your organization. Your processes, you're making decisions, you're planning your operations. You need to include risk management into all of these areas. And of course, it has to be continuous. It has to be part of your culture. It is not supposed to be a stand-alone. Very, very important. Then we have principle 2, which is the structured and comprehensive approach, right? This principle talks about you having a systematic process, having a structured process. That means you have a clear process to ensure that you effectively manage risk. You have a what's the word now? An organized, let me use that word. You have an organized process of managing risk within your organization, just to ensure that it is effectively managed. Okay, so you ensure that there's a clear framework, there's a clear understanding of how you want to manage risk. There is an organized approach. Very, very important. Okay, how do we identify risk? How often do we monitor the risk? How do we treat the risk? All of these things are very important so that we can manage our risk effectively. So if you're implementing these in the organization, you want to ensure that you take note of these principles. So we have principle 3, we talked about customization to the organization. Like I said, it has to align with what you are doing. It has to be aligned with your objectives. It has to fit your organization. It has to fit your context. You cannot be analyzing or identifying risk. Let's for example, you are in the financial sector and they're identifying risk of let me see, let's say risk of environmental pollution. That might not be a risk to you. It might be a risk to manufacturing company. But let me use another one. Maybe you're identifying in a financial situation, you're identifying risk to. Let me see. I'm not trying to look for a risk that is out of context, but I believe that's what I'm trying to say, right? You want to ensure that you tailor it to meet the context of the organization. It aligns with your culture. It aligns with what you do. It aligns with your what's the word now? It aligns with your goals, your environment. Okay, very very important. All right. Then we have principle 4, which talks about inclusion of stakeholders. You have to involve stakeholders. I said this earlier. You cannot do it without them. You have to involve everybody, that like the risk owners, the stakeholders, those are supposed to make decisions. Maybe your employees that are supposed to be part of it. You include everybody, because that is the only way you will get an effective risk process. That is the only way that you manage your risk effectively. They will also be able to give you informed. They'll also be able to give you what's the word now? Insight into what they do and the risk attached to these things. And of course, you're able to make decisions that will support the organization. Okay. Then we have principle 5, which is dynamic, iterative, and responsive process. This means that your risk management should be flexible. There could be changes at any point in time. So you should be able to make changes. For example, if there is a, what do you call it now? If there is a new directive, a regulatory change or directive, if there is a technological change, there has to be a way to adapt. So you're supposed to be able to make changes to your risk process. It has to be flexible, right? Very important. Then we have principle 6, which talks about best available information. Okay, so this ensures that you're able to make decisions based on what you have, based on history, based on information. You are not making decisions off your head, right? You're able to make informed decisions based on what is available. Okay, so there has to be documented processes. There has to be these things, what do you call it now? There has to be available information that will help you make decisions regarding managing risk within your organization. And then we have principle 7, which is human and cultural factors, right? Here you're able to understand how, or the impact of human and cultural factor on your organization or your risk management. You know that, oh, people are very important. Their behavior, their attitude would definitely influence how you manage risk, influence how you identify risk. So it means that you want to ensure that everybody is aware. You improve their risk culture, and so that maybe you have some sort of what's the word now? Some sort of trainings or awareness, so that everybody understands, right? You're able to promote the risk awareness culture, so that it will lead to more effective risk management within the organization. You need people to manage risk, right? Then we have principle 8, which is the last one, which talks about continuous improvement. This is very very important. There has to be continual improvement. You have to evolve over time. There has to be some feedback, there has to be some monitoring, there has to be some improvement, just to ensure that it is effective. You cannot be stagnant. You review, you monitor, and then you make changes, you improve on these processes over time. Okay. I don't want to draw too much on this principle, so that we can cover the other ones before our time is up. Now, these principles, of course, it helps you to make decisions. Like I said earlier, you are able to make the right decisions. It supports your resilience as an organization. If you implement the right, if you implement it in the right way, you're able to manage your risk effectively, and of course, you're resilient as an organization, because you've integrated the risk management into your processes. So this is still part of what it helps you to do, what each of those principles helps you to do. Like I said, it supports your decision making. It helps you to be resilient as an organization. So I will just skip these areas, because it is still explaining how the risk management helps you to stay resilient, and of course support your decision making. So let's quickly go to framework because we have less than 10 minutes left. Now for frameworks, like I said, we have 6. We have leadership and commitment. We have designing the framework. We have evaluation of the framework. We have continual improvement. We have implementing the risk management. And of course, we have integration into the processes, right? So let us take them one after the other. So the first one is leadership and commitment. You want to ensure that the leaders, that's the top management, they are committed to these things. If they are committed and they're able to direct their staff, they'll be able to ensure that everybody follows through with what it is that we are doing. They would help us to improve awareness culture. They would help us to ensure that we carry on with the risk culture within the organization. Okay, then we have integration into our processes. Of course, I already said this earlier. You want to ensure that we seamlessly integrate the risk management into our processes. We ensure that we embed it into every part, into your strategies, your operations, your processes, your culture, every area. This would help you to effectively manage risk. Okay. The third one talks about designing the framework. You are supposed to have or plan how your risk management will function. You're supposed to develop some strategies. You're supposed to have some practices, some roles. You assign roles, responsibilities to people that will manage it. Design a framework. How would this thing go within the organization? Who is going to manage it? How do we do these things? Very, very important. And the fourth one is implementing the risk management. Of course, very important. After you've designed the risk, you've analyzed, you've identified your people, those are going to handle it, then you implement. Go ahead to put your framework into action. You assess, you identify your risk, you assess it, you treat, and you monitor. What risk do we have here? Oh, we have risk of financial loss. Okay. How do we assess it? What's the impact? What's the severity? That's what's the likelihood and impact? Okay. How do we treat it? Are we accepting this risk? Are we mitigating it? How do we monitor it? What do we put in place? All of these things are what is embedded under the fourth framework, which is implementing risk management. Then we have the fifth one, which is evaluating the risk management. This talks about you assessing what you've done, regularly assessing these things, just to ensure that we are still on track. So you assess, where are we? Is this effective? Or if put in place, is it okay to help us achieve our objectives? You need to regularly evaluate. And of course, definitely improvement is very, very important. There has to be continual improvement. Once you've assessed and you've noticed some areas that are lagging, you find a way to review and improve on those processes, improve on, adapt to new challenges we've identified, find a way to adapt to these things, and of course, improve the risk culture within the organization. Okay. Let me go into, we've talked about some of these earlier, so let me just go into the last part, which is the risk management process. I didn't go through all of this because it is still a continuation or a more explanation of what this helps you to do. Having your organizational resilience, improve decision making. Don't need to dwell on that. So let's quickly look at the risk management process. We also have 6 processes, like I told us earlier. Excuse me. We have communication and consultation, which is the first one. We have scope and context. We have risk assessment. We have the risk treatment. We have monitoring and review. And of course, recording and reporting. This process talks about how you are able to identify, assess, manage, and monitor your risk so that, you're able to achieve your organizational objectives. So first of all, of course, you need to communicate and consult those that are involved. Like I said earlier, you have some people that are your stakeholders, you have to involve them so that everyone understands, you engage them, so you're able to identify the risk that would affect your business objectives. Then you need to now define the scope of the risk, define the context, what are the criteria, how do we manage this risk, define all of that before you go ahead to now conduct risk assessment. So you identify your risk, analyze it by finding the likelihood, determining the likelihood and the impact of this risk. And of course, evaluating the severity, or what's the risk score? Is it high or low? What then do we need to do? How do we determine how to prioritize this risk? Then you now move on. After identifying your risk and assessing, you move on to treating this risk. Very important. How do we manage this risk? What do you need to put in place? Right? How do we mitigate the risk? Do we accept it, or do we transfer these risks? Very important that you note these things. And then after that, you go on to monitor and review. This is also very important. You don't just leave it at putting measures in place or putting controls in place. You need to continually monitor your risk. You need to check if there is any way to improve on these areas. And then the last one is you recording and reporting. Very important. You need to keep records. This will also help you to go back to review and see where you were before and how you can improve. Very important. Everybody, that the stakeholders should know what is happening. So there should be a documented report of your risk assessment. Now, these are just benefits of the risk management process. It helps you to make decisions. We said this earlier. It improves your resilience. We've said this earlier as well. It helps you to plan properly. We've also said most of these things. We have said it earlier. It improves your stakeholder confidence. We've also mentioned most of these earlier. We also talked about reducing your costs, reducing negative impacts, continuous improvement. All of these have been touched on earlier, and these are just examples. I don't want to dwell on this so that we can ask questions before we run out of time. So these are just examples of some of the things that can happen, the risk in different sectors. We wouldn't also be dwelling on that. We can get the slide and you will understand. These are just examples of, and I've cited some of them earlier. I've cited some of them, like risk of financial loss, risk of health and safety. Maybe there could be a risk of somebody making an error, or maybe there's an infection that is going viral. All of these are some of the examples of risk in several sectors that I don't want to go into. So before we leave, please, do you have any questions before we go? Do we have any questions before we leave? Do we see people on this call?
All right,
Hello?
please just check the chat room. You have a question there.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Oh, yes. This is just a guideline. The 31,000 is just a guideline to managing your risk. It only provides a guideline, like a roadmap, and let me put it that way. So you can't be certified to it. Let me see. Is there another question? Okay, I think that is the only question I can see here. Do you have any other question? Any other question before we close for today? Okay, I think that's all the questions that we have, right? So I'll be handing back to Messi. Hi, Messi.
Yeah, thank you so much,
All
Ike.
right.
Thank you. Please, a round of applause in the absence of no question. A round of applause to our trainer. She has done justice to ISO 31,000. Oh, Blessing wants to speak. Blessing, the floor is yours for just 1 minute because we are out of time. So you can speak. You have the floor. Ika, are you still on the call?
Yes, please, I'm here.
Okay, so Blessing, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you hear me? Good morning. Thank you,
Morning.
Ma, for this lesson. I mean, thank you for breaking it down. This is one of the ISO I enjoyed, really. Okay, so my question is, when an organization cannot mitigate a risk, like when there are risks that you can't manage, what do you do? Because there are repetitive losses. Like, are there avenues, or is it the fact that the organization doesn't know what to do? Because I have seen cases where, issues, let me use staffing, for example, is a major problem for business owners. Staffing is an issue. So what do you do to mitigate staffing risks? Because you don't know the person, you just have faith that, based on their CV, based on their experience, or based on what, and they come in, they become probably a nuisance or become an issue. You start all over again. So you see business owners, some of them have even been able to, they've shut down because of staffing issues. So I'm talking from experience because I deal with business owners very well. So this is an issue. Please, Ma, can you in any way give some, lighting up on how to mitigate risks for staffing? I'm just being specific. Thank
Okay,
you.
okay. So when you say staffing, do you mean in terms of okay, I think you mentioned them misbehaving. So it is not about them leaving abruptly, right?
Yes, so you have issues of them leaving, after you have trained, you also have those who they come in, they assume that they have the world experience, you even confirmed it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't still align with your objective. So what do we do? Because I don't know, it's a risk that has been able, they have not been able to manage it.
To manage. Okay, so well, for that, one thing you can do first of all is to accept the risk. But let me give you a more what's the word now? A more practical example, a more practical approach. It is either to outsource that risk. Outsource in the sense that instead of you recruiting yourself, you can outsource to a recruitment company. They will be the one to do a thorough what's the word now? Thorough what they call it again? Oh my god, skip my mind. Engagement, not engagement. What's the word? Interview, right? They would want to do
Yeah.
a thorough interview and thorough background check on these people. Now, what they do is they would definitely, in fact, nowadays you visit these people's homes, you visit their homes, so they know that they can't just leave abruptly, right? So even if you are misbehaving, it's not about you sending before. It's before that they will say, oh, send your reference. Anybody can doctor a reference, but now, you know, organizations would definitely visit your home. They would write to your previous employer to get information on why you left without your knowledge. They just tell you, give us your last. And of course, if you give me a wrong one and I send a message to them or I reach out to them and it is wrong, I will definitely not, employ you, right? So you can outsource that process so that it will not stress you. They will help you to do a thorough interview. They would visit their homes. I've seen cases, where they go to their homes, your location, they will go there, check and confirm that you're living there, and you have somebody that they can hold on to. And then for competence too, if they are misbehaving, if you've done a thorough interview, it's possible that you can bridge that. However, the other thing you can do is get what they call it now. You have a suggestion plan. At least you have more than one person handling that process. That's the other thing you can do. Because trust me, you can't really eradicate this risk. It will definitely be there. So you need to be able to accept that, okay, what level, you now need to decide what level you can accept and then find a way to mitigate the others. So it is either you outsource the process so that whatever happens, you'll be on the company that you outsourced to. And of course, if they are misbehaving, you terminate their employment, but you have a succession plan. So you're not employing just one person to handle a particular role. You can have more than one person that would help you, so that if one person even leaves abruptly, you are not entirely left, stranded. I think that's like the better solution. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. And from what I got from what you said, I think succession plan works. The problem
Yes,
is just that some business owners are not able to afford that overhead, but it's fine. Succession plan, it works. It works well. Thank you.
you're welcome.
All
Okay, so another
right.
question. Oh, okay. All right,
I
Missy.
don't think we'll be taking any more questions
All
because
right,
we're
that's fine.
already eating into our break. Except you don't want to go for break. I don't know if there is anybody that doesn't want to go for break. Anyone? Okay, I think no, at least they want to have a little stretch of their legs. So thank you. Please a round of applause to our trainer. Ike, thank you so much for joining us in this session and for giving us an excellent delivery. Thank you. Please a round of applause to her. Thank you. Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
thank you, everyone.
Yeah. So right about now, we will be going on a very short break. Go grab yourself a glass of water, coffee, a little stretch, and then we will be back at exactly 12 p.m. Nigerian time. 12 p.m. Nigerian time. So enjoy your short break and do not go too far. Bye for now.